Mr. Chairman, dear friends and excellencies, first of all, I'm very grateful for this invitation to be here with you in Sofia on the conference organized by UNESCO, the organization which is very close to, I'm sure, all our hearts, and Atlantic Club of Bulgaria. I think this conference shows again that Bulgaria is a country which long tradition, long history of tolerance, the country which geographically is located on the crossroads of religious, of cultures, of political influences, and I think this is really a great place to discuss the situation which we have now with radicalism, with extremism, and how we can respond to these real challenges of 21st century. Please allow me, especially after such very competent and eloquent speech of Madam Bukova, that I will share with you with some political remarks, because I'm a politician. Salman Pasi, in his kind introduction, informed you that I was 10 years president of Poland. When I think about my milestones, the milestones of my presidency, I'm very honored to underline the Polish constitution, Polish NATO membership and European Union membership, and to some extent also Ukrainian democracy and Ukrainian road to European structures, because from the very beginning I'm very much involved in all these processes of Ukrainian sovereignty and democracy. Solomon also correctly informed you that I'm only president of Poland who was 2 times elected. It means only one who was re-elected. And when I see the situation in my country now, I think that this record can be continued in next years. But seriously speaking, I want to tell you that the problems are quite dramatic. Of course, Irina is right when she said that each generation, each time has own challenges, and to say that the world is changing, that is very banal observation. Of course, the change from the very beginning, the world from the very beginning is changing, and that is natural element. We can say even that the most stable element of the humanity is change, because we have change and again. But what is necessary to say that the changes of the last 20 years, because of the technological revolution, of the new type of communications, are extremely deep, and they really changed very much political life, social life, and the situation in the world. We have in sense of this technological changes, even each year new phenomenon, we have new devices, we have new possibilities, and of course even we politicians or we intellectuals or others, we cannot follow all these changes as fast as these changes are going, what creates a lot of misunderstandings, conflicts, etc. The second important element of this time is that the architecture of the world, the architecture of the global world changed also very much. The time, and especially I'm speaking here in Bulgaria, you know very well what was the time of Iron Curtain, of 2 blocks, etc. This time is finished. Was finished almost 20 or even more as 25 years ago. And next years we had such a little bit naive feeling or thinking, what Fukuyama said in his famous book, End of the History, that now is time for democracy, for human rights, for liberal systems, for market economy, etc. And of course it worked. It worked at least 1 decade, maybe even 2 decades, and changed very much the picture of the world, because never in the history of mankind we have so many, let's say, democratic, free market-oriented states on the list. But after these 2 decades, we have to say that this naive thinking that now only is the end of the history and now we have only the system which will protect and which will respect democracy, market economy, human rights, rights of the minority, etc., is not serious now. We have extremely difficult time and dangerous time with a lot of fears, with a lot of tensions, with a lot of conflicts. And it's necessary to say that today in contemporary world, in this global politics, we have no one place which is able to control all these changes, all these tensions and the problems. America, United States lost this leading position which this country had in the last 20 years. China still is not prepared to play such role. They want to do it and they will do it because this is a question of time only, but very typical for Chinese behavior is patience. They are very patient. They wait for this time when they will be the superpower #1 in the world. We have a lot of ambitions from Russia because they want to stay as one of the players on this global stage. We have increasing position of Latin America, we have Africa which own ambitions, and we have of course the European Union with a lot of own problems which we can observe even each day with some countries inside European Union, Greece, today British referendum, now refugees crisis, etc., etc. But of course that is a topic maybe for next speech, but speaking about today's topic, is necessary to say that we are in the most dramatic, in the most difficult period of the history in the last many decades. And it's necessary to understand that everything what we have in front of us can be more complicated and not less complicated, can be more dramatic and not less dramatic. I'm sorry that at the end of the year, when normally we wish all the best for the next year, I'm not enough optimistic. I'm quite pessimistic. But if we are politicians, we are the leaders of civil society, it's necessary to understand that all the challenges which we have now and which will come next year will be extremely complex and will be necessary to react with all our potential, our opportunities and power. Pope Francis said some weeks ago that in fact we have a World War III in pieces. That is difficult to compare with very well-known First World War or Second World War, but in many regions, in the many places, we have the same situation as we experienced during these two, the most dramatic wars in the history. Maybe this opinion is going too far, but I'm close to say that really we have something what is the real problem. That is the World War. It means the very global problem which we have in the pieces, what probably is some advantage for us, because to have such conflicts in one piece would be probably too complicated and impossible to control. Because if you see this vacuum of leading forces in the world, if you see that new architecture of the politics is creating now, but we have still many years to see such real picture of new centers of politics and economy. It means that for some next year we should accept the situation that the leading force of the politics and leading force of the global relationships will be much more chaos and not leading position of one country. if we see the weakness of many international organizations, including United Nations, because this organization was built at the end of the World War II and was very successful in this first period of its activity. Today is a question how to reform this structure, and we cannot resign of the United Nations because we have nothing instead. We have nothing instead, and that is something what we have to do now. And of course we have this violent extremism, which we observed in the United States, in Paris last weeks, in many places of the world. And of course, if you want to fight against this violent extremism, we have to eliminate the reasons of this extremism on the soil, exactly in the places where this extremism exists and is developing. What is a very difficult task, because it means that we cannot use one method. That is not only the politics, even that is also not military measures. What they have a lot of own limits. We can eliminate the leaders, we can eliminate some units or some troops of this extremism, but if we will not change the situation, economical situation, political situation, if we will not change the mentality of the people, we have no chance to finish this never-ending fight against violence and extremism in these places. So, if we want to make the list of available methods which we can use to fight against this extremism and violence, I think two are really very important, and then we are on the topic of our today's conference, is the culture and education. But I want to add one more, that is reconciliation. That is reconciliation, which, in my opinion, because about culture, Irina Bokova said a lot, and I fully agree with her opinion. Education, especially education of women, I think, can be a decisive element of the change of behaviors in these regions of the world, because I'm sure that I'm not wrong, that the female, they propose to us much more moderate, much more tolerant approach to many complicated problems. And I think this education of women and the rights for women in these regions, they can change political situation and these tensions very much. But Irina Bokova is, especially, is difficult to add something after her speech. So I would like to concentrate your attention on this question of reconciliation, because it was one of important elements of my presidency and of my achievements. If you want to limit the tensions, if you want to limit these problems, especially among the countries which historically were fighting each other, it's necessary to propose the real politics of reconciliation. In Poland, we tried quite successfully to do this reconciliation process with Germans. You know the history, our main enemy during 1,000 years. Today, together with Germany, we are in the two most important political and military blocs like NATO and European Union. But we started this reconciliation process with Ukrainians, with Lithuanians, our neighbors in the last centuries, and the history is full of dramas, of crime, of extremely painful chapters. I propose also such very long-term project of Polish-Jewish reconciliation, because you know very well that Poland was, before World War II, the place of life of the biggest Jewish community in the world. Before World War II, Jewish community in Poland, it was something, they were Polish citizens of course, but the Jewish community was something around 3.5 million people, in the United States 3 million. And of course, because of Nazis, because of Holocaust, more as 3 million Polish Jews were killed in death camp, in concentration camps, etc., etc. But this history was extremely complicated. It was 1,000 years of common history of Poles and Jews and Polish soil, good and bad, with fantastic pages and with very dramatic pages, with fantastic person and oppression, etc. But this this process was necessary to open, even it was quite painful for both sides, I guess. And today I can say that the renaissance of Jewish culture, the renaissance of Jewish history and such understanding of the role of Jews in Poland increased very much in the last years, especially among young people. Of course, for this process of reconciliation helped us very much the construction of the Museum of Polish Jewish History in Warsaw. If you will have a chance to visit Warsaw, I invite you very much to see this unique museum, which is a place of education, is a place of reconciliation also. But when I speak about reconciliation, it's necessary to understand the reconciliation, unfortunately, should start with the politics, should start with the political decision of the leaders. And when I see the ambassadors of Balkan states, when I see the people I visited some weeks ago, Bosnia-Herzegovina, I understand that this reconciliation process, that is a real base, that is a pillar for next steps. And this reconciliation, this is first, political decision, we have to do it. The second is education. Third, school books. We cannot promote hatred. We cannot promote all these bad things in the books. It doesn't mean that we will not speak about the truth. We will not speak about the real history. But it's necessary to show these different points of view, the different approaches. The culture and the artists, they have a huge role to play in this process of reconciliation, because probably the books, especially the school books, are not so popular as a good movies, as a good romance or literature, which can show that we are human beings, and for us to be with this or another one nationality is important, but first of all we should be tolerant, we should create relations with peace, with understanding, with mutual understanding, etc. So I think in this process our combat against violent extremism, this reconciliation should play also important role, and that is something what I would like to add to this very important and strategic ideas of Irina Bokova. And finally, I want to say, and that is a little bit echo of the words of Mr. Passy, I think we should fight together. If we want to say one day that the problem of terrorism is a problem of France, or this is a problem of the United States, it means that we open doors for terrorism everywhere. If you want to be successful, if you want to be effective in this fight against extremism, it's necessary to fight together. It's necessary to cooperate. And that is I remember very well these words after September 11th in New York, when everywhere in the world we heard such sentence: today we are New Yorkers, today we are Americans. Last weeks we were Parisians, we were the French people, etc. But this sentence should be the part of our understanding of our life every day. That cannot be only during commemorations or during the funerals, because it's not enough. We should understand that our success depends on our cooperation and our unity. If we will be united, we have a chance to fight. For this united efforts, we need organizations. One of these most important organizations is United Nations. And I think, and that is something what I want to say from my heart, that if one day United Nations, the most influential and the most important organization of 200, I think 200, how many members? 119 countries. I think only track and fields organization is bigger, or FIFA is maybe bigger as the United Nations. But I don't ask Irina Bokova to be president of FIFA. I would like to wish her to be next Secretary General of United Nations. And I think with her knowledge, with her experience from UNESCO, and with this fantastic achievements which you have in this organization, I think would be great to see the person, the politician, the diplomat, and the female who understands very well that to solve the problems, the politics is not enough. It's very important to use education, to use culture, to use reconciliation, and to use this very special, very unique approach, which we know from Irina's side so long time. Thank you very much for your attention.